get asked what it's like to cheer for the Leafs? The screaming usually speaks for itself, but sometimes I think I've come up with the perfect thing to explain it. Shoot. The last 2 times someone on the Leafs got a milestone that was so big the entire team poured onto the ice to celebrate, both of them happened on Long Island. Both of them were overtime losses. Yeah. Or you could do this. Don't. Matthews' record-breaking 4-goal debut and the game where he broke Matt Sundin's record for all-time goals by a Leaf, those were both overtime losses. I'd like you to stop. Jean-Gabriel Pageau played in both games. Stop! That is actually kind of interesting. Let's go! It starts with an A and ends with anxiety. Off the charts levels of passion! This is a nightmare! With you wherever you are, welcome to LFR. Dude, Leafs lose 4-3 in overtime to the New York Islanders. The Leafs gain a very important point. Probably should have been 2. This is the part where I usually go, let's talk about the game. This is a video that I want to do in 3 parts. Because ultimately, what happened? No one scored in the first. Adam Pelech opened the scoring off a great screen from Jonathan Drouin. Matthews scores an absolute beauty to tie it, cutting across the goal mouth and scoring on his former teammate. That tied Matt Sundin's record. Then a one-time blast later in the period where he eludes everybody to break Sundin's record, and the Leafs get a 2-1 lead. About halfway through the third period, Matthew Schaefer scores a goal very similar to Matthews' first goal. The game's tied. Robertson puts the Leafs back up almost immediately. Emil Heineman ties it with less than 3 minutes left because the Leafs really struggled to hold on to a lead. And Matthew Schaefer scores his second of the game to win it in overtime, and we all scream Morgan Rielly's name so loud that I think he heard all of us individually. I want to talk about the 3 most important people in this game: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because listen, Auston Matthews did an incredible thing tonight. I was thinking about this a few weeks ago. Like, he was getting closer and closer to Sundin's record of 420 goals. That is was the record for the most amount of goals in Leafs franchise history. And he's inching closer and closer, and I'm like, man, this actually kind of sucks, because we're barely going to talk about this. We're not focused on this. We're not excited about this. The team is in free fall. They're last place in the Eastern Conference, and we're all begging for them to fire someone, anyone. Well, the Leafs do. They fire Mark Savard, assistant coach, right before the Christmas break. The Leafs play one more game. They win it. Matthews doesn't have a point in that game. Leafs then take a few days off. In the 4 games since the Leafs returned from Christmas break, Auston Matthews has become a demon. In 4 games, 10 points, 6 of them goals. Back-to-back multi-goal games, including his 83rd multi-goal game in this one in his career. 6 points in his last 2 games. He broke Matt Sundin's goal-scoring record in a Leafs uniform in 317 fewer games than it took Matt's to set the record. With his 20th goal of the season that he scored in this game, that was his 2nd goal of the game, Auston Matthews is now tied for 15th in the NHL in goal scoring, which is beneath his usual standard, but he's climbing. Listen to the guys that he's tied with right now. Wyatt Johnston, Dylan Guenther, Cole Caulfield, Tage Thompson, Leon Draisaitl, Mark Scheifele, Nikita Kucherov. That's more like it. Oh, and worth mentioning, he's played fewer games this season than every single guy I just mentioned. Matthews is at 35 games this season because he's missed games due to injury and illness and whatnot. Every one of those guys has played 40 games or more. Since Auston Matthews has joined the NHL, he's scored 421 goals. That is the most amount of goals out of anybody since the beginning of the 2016-17 season. No one else has even scored 400. Leon Draisaitl is sitting at 398 goals, and he's played 59 more games than Matthews. Even strength goals. Matthews leads the league once again with 311. No one else has hit 300. No one else has hit 290. No one else has hit 280. Connor McDavid is in second with 270. Power play goals, he falls a little short with 108. He's only in 7th. He's tied for 3rd in game winners. He's tied for 4th in shots on goal, and out of anyone in the NHL in the top 10 for shots on goal over that span, he has the highest shooting percentage at 15.8. Listen, on this channel, there's a lot of doom, there's a lot of gloom, and there's reason for it. Obviously, we got to give this guy his flowers. he was driving me nuts a few weeks ago. He was driving all of us nuts. And we've gotten this glimpse of the guy we were driven nuts for. The guy that we missed. Listen, no hate to Calle Yarncroke, but if he goes 4 or 5 games without scoring a goal, we don't lose our collective minds. Because Auston Matthews is the greatest goal scorer in Toronto Maple Leafs history by any metric. So far, he's the greatest goal scorer of his generation. Just look at the stats that I threw in front of you. No one else is even particularly close. And you look and you go, oh, what's he even won? What did Matt Sundin win? Yes, he went to conference finals several times, actually, and we remember them all fondly and cherish them. The ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup. I want them to win the Stanley Cup more than I think I want my next breath. But, and if you've watched me for a long time, you know I've always championed acknowledging greatness, appreciating greatness while it's sitting there in front of you. Years ago, I remember, I think it was like 2014, I wrote an article, it was up on sportsnet.ca, about how Alex Ovechkin was on pace to break Wayne Gretzky's goal-scoring record. And at the time, there were a few dreamers who were like, you know what? Maybe. That's kind of fun. But a lot of the feedback was, that's dumb. When I wrote that article, do you know how many goals Alexander Ovechkin had in his career? 451. Only 30 more than Matthews currently has. Could Matthews do it? And right now, you're saying what? You're saying the same thing everyone said 11, 12 years ago. Well, what's the more likely scenario? The more likely scenario is he misses time, or he slows down, or chooses to retire, or whatever, and he never even gets close to Ovechkin's record. You know what's way more fun? Maybe he gets there. I mean, watching the guy the last couple games, how would you bet against him? Listen, we ride this guy hard because so much is expected of him. And the reason so much is expected of him is look at what he's capable of. You know what's annoying about Alexander Ovechkin and his legacy is he won the Cup in 2018. Please go back and look at what everyone said about him when the Capitals lost to the Penguins again in 2017. No matter how many goals he scored, it wasn't until that Cup win in 2018 that people were like, okay, yeah, we could call him one of the best ever. What? He didn't need that validation to be crowned in that conversation. But we don't have to have that conversation anymore because he has his cup. I want Matthews to get his cup. I want him to get it so bad here in Toronto with the Leafs. I want him to be on the Leafs. Had to talk directly to the hockey gods for a second. That was close. Whether that day comes or not, this guy is simply the best to ever do it in blue and white. Now, a little soliloquy about Matthew Schaefer, because after all, he scored 2 goals, including the overtime winner in this one. Matthew Schaefer, we did not hype nearly enough coming into the season. I remember what I said about the Islanders coming into the season. I thought they were going to end up at the bottom of the Metro, and the reason for that is I thought they were going to not be all that good. I mean, they were going to have an 18-year-old defenseman on their back end. That's usually not a good sign. Also, they just picked first overall. Usually not a good sign that you're poised to do anything good. Remember the 2016-17 Toronto Maple Leafs. They had just picked first overall. They ended up making the playoffs. Yes, did any of us think they were going to make the playoffs? No! Not many. I thought the Islanders were going to struggle. I thought they were going to sell off hard because you should see all the expiring deals that they have. But some guys have performed above what they did last year. Bo Horvat's been crazy. Oh, and they also got an 18-year-old defenseman who's got over 40 points or whatever already. 12 goals. I'm going to melt your brain right now. Matthew Schaefer was good enough in the Ontario Hockey League that people saw him play in the Ontario Hockey League. They saw him play junior hockey in the Ontario Hockey League. They saw him play and they said, he's so good that we're going to draft him first overall. Can you tell me how many career goals Matthew Schaefer had in the OHL? If you guessed 10, you're right. Matthew Schaefer had only 10 goals in his entire Ontario Hockey League career. 10 goals in 73 career OHL games. Schaefer has 12 goals in 42 NHL games. Matthew Schaefer currently has 28 points in the NHL. His OHL career high is 22! Now, granted, it was last season where he played just 17 games, but that's unbelievable! But it's not just the goal scoring, it's everything. The skating, the way he turns it on, and if you don't read that he's joining the rush right away, you're never gonna catch him. You're so screwed. He's a minute eater. He can take a punch and apparently a cross check to the ribs. This kid is the real deal. And it was kind of out of sight, out of mind, and I bow down for how wrong I was. It's not that I thought he was going to be bad, but you only play 17 games in the OHL, and you're just going to step into the NHL as an 18-year-old defenseman? No, it's a lot harder than that. You can't do that if you're a normal person. Matthew Schaefer is not a normal person. That is an extraordinary talent. And he's the reason the Islanders are where they are right now. And I end this video with an unfortunate third chapter because Matthew Schaefer was picked first overall after playing just 17 games in junior hockey in his draft year. Morgan Rielly was picked 5th overall in 2012 after playing just 18 games with the Moose Jaw Warriors. He missed all those games because he was nursing an injury. When the Leafs picked Morgan Rielly, I remember I stayed up extra late. It was like 2:30, maybe even 3 in the morning in Scotland because I was on my first trip to Scotland. I stayed up. The Leafs had the 5th overall pick, and they picked this injury-prone kid who barely played junior! I thought it was the worst pick in human history, and I went to bed miserable. And he turned into a stud! A huge part of a young up-and-coming team. He was a huge part of that 16-17 team. And what season was it? 18-19? 20 goals and 72 points! The injuries start piling up. COVID happens. In the 21-22 season, he has actually a really underrated season where he had 10 goals and 68 points. Even a couple years ago in 23-24, he had 58 points. He was a +7. Last year, 41 points. Still good. Not quite as good. Oh, and he was a -8. This year, he has 26 points in 40 games. That is a really good offensive pace. He is having a good offensive season by counting stats, but he is a -15. That is the worst mark on the Leafs, who have struggled this season. And it gets worse. As Kevin Papetti pointed out, Morgan Rielly was -4 in a 4-3 loss. Just like Connor McDavid does to him, seemingly every time they play against each other. On Matthew Schaefer's first goal, he set Morgan Rielly on fire. Now, Rielly was rushing off the bench to replace an injured Jake McCabe, but he was still the guy on the highlight reel. And the overtime winner was a calamity of errors. Joseph Woll makes a save. Hooray! That's the gig. Good job. Then, despite the fact that his teammates have been out there a while and they're kind of tired, he plays it. I don't know if one of his teammates asked him to play it. I don't think they did, to be honest. Maybe we'll find out. Shouldn't have done it. Max Domi can't get it deep because he's exhausted, because the puck should have never ended up on his stick, because the play should have been dead. You're the #1 face-off team in the NHL. Why aren't you freezing that? Domi doesn't get it deep. They risk it and they try for a line change. Matthew Knies rushes onto the ice, goes straight at Matt Barzal, and he gets there. He gets there on time. And he gets enough skin on Barzal and drives him wide enough that Barzal is no longer a scoring threat. He's a passing threat, for sure, but who's he going to pass it to? Well, he's going to pass it to Matthew Schaefer, who's wide open in front of the Leafs net because Morgan Rielly abandoned his post, but to help out his friend, who didn't need the help. And listen, these are split-second decisions. Morgan Rielly went from guarding a 2-on-1 to it wasn't a 2-on-1 anymore. He was preparing for a 2-on-1. He chose the puck carrier instead of the pass, right? Fast. Things happen fast. Speed used to be Morgan Rielly's game. Speed and just bulldozing through his opponents. He's so underratedly big. He's sort of tall. He's tall-ish, but he's thick. Dude's like 220 plus pounds. That speed it's just not there. in the feet and in the head. He was playing with Troy Stetcher tonight, who's like his 30th D partner in a Leafs uniform. He's a minus 15. Oh, who's even close, right? Max Domi is a minus 11. A lot of that is when Max Domi was playing center, and he shouldn't have been playing center. Okay, well, who's next? Philip Myers. Not an everyday player, minus 8. But it gets more complicated, and it's so much worse. Kevin Papetti tweeted this. Heading into today's action, there were 422 players with 400 plus minutes at 5-on-5 this year. Morgan Rielly has been on for more goals against per minute than anyone else. This game isn't going to help as he's a minus 3 tonight. He would go on to be a minus 4. And Craig Berube was asked about Morgan Rielly after the game, and he wasn't critical. Craig Berube on where he's at with Morgan Rielly's game as of late. Tonight was a tough one. I know that, but he's played some really good hockey for us this year. I'm not worried about it. I think he'll get back to the level he was at. I do believe that. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Rielly was a minus 4 tonight. I'm going to defend Berube here. He can't skewer Rielly in the media. He could. He absolutely could. He could challenge him. The Leafs already did that earlier this year, and it worked for one game before aggressively not working ever again. Chris Tanev is out. Brandon Carlo is not back yet. Jake McCabe, who has had, I can't believe how good of a... Can I tell you how good Jake McCabe has been? Troy Stetcher has the second best plus-minus on the Leafs in 22 games, which is hilarious. He's a plus 11. He's been a godsend. Jake McCabe is plus 26. To reiterate, plus 26 on this year's Leafs team. Plus 26, so that's even strength, and he's on a top 5 penalty kill in the NHL right now. Oliver Ekman-Larsson's been getting his flowers, and he deserves them. Jake McCabe might be the Leafs MVP this year so far. So being down Tanev, being down Carlo, being down McCabe, apparently, that's a huge blow to the Leafs. And Craig Berube needs Morgan Rielly now more than ever. I know he's got a full no move clause, but let's call this what it is. This moment in time, right now, is Morgan Rielly's last shot. What else do you do? Literally, what do you do? The way he talked heading into the season, the way the Leafs talked heading into the season, there were conversations with Treliving, there were conversations with Berube. He gets out there, first game of the season, he's the best player on the ice, and he scores the game-winning goal. Yes, the way it should be, a sign of things to come. He is defensively unwatchable, and the situation is untenable. I love the guy. He's been an incredible Leaf. I've had nothing but positive interactions with him. Minus 4 in a 4-3 loss. Berube needs him now more than ever. The team needs him now more than ever. Leafs Nation needs Morgan Rielly now more than they ever have. And he's got to step up and right the ship now, or things are going to get tense and awkward real fast. The Leafs are 3 points out of last in the East. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot. This season could still go either way. And the way things have gone in recent games gives you hope that maybe, just maybe, they can do it. But without him, they are dead in the water. This team doesn't do a thing. He has to step up. Beginning, middle, end. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment in the comment box down below. For now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. It's now or never.